Today I'm here with Bobby Carey of Carey's Taxidermy, and we're going to talk about something that all deer hunters kind of need to know how to do, and that is caping out a deer. Handling a good trophy mount starts in the field, doesn't it?
Right. You got to really make sure you're not dragging it around, losing hair, getting it wet. Try to keep it dry because that's where a lot of the bacteria sets in really quick, and you'll lose hair, and it's not going to look too good on your mount.
What would be the very first step you would do after field dressing?
If this was my deer and I'm going to start getting it ready for the taxidermist, I mean, he came down right to where the breastbone starts, and that's about where you want to stop your cutting on your fur. We're going to be needing about this much of his cape around his body. We're going to do a complete circle around this, and we're going to be cutting from the inside out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to grab a pair of gloves and we'll get started. What do you think?
Sounds good. We're going to be making 3 circles here, one around the body and one around both legs. So I'm going to start cutting here.
Circle 1, huh?
Yes. Just go ahead and get the other circles cut here and just go all the way around the deer.
Okay, this is circle number 2.
A lot of taxidermists use a scalpel blade. It's a little cheating, but you can get these too. We're going to be following that white and brown, and we're going to take it all the way up to where we made our cuts at.
We're going to do that on both sides?
Yes. I think we got it here.
All right, I'm going to trade you sides.
Okay. The same thing on this side, just follow the white and brown line.
Okay.
If you're not sure where the white and brown is, to be safe, just kind of go out into the brown a little more.
Okay.
All right, got our lines cut. We're gonna go ahead and start peeling some of the skin off the legs here. It's just kind of a slow process. Just take your time, keep the holes a minimum.
Yeah, I would think that was the most important thing. If you poke this and put a hole in here, that could be something you're gonna have to try to fix later on in the process.
Right, it's just best not to do that, and it makes for a nicer mount. It gets a little where the meat tries to stay attached to the skin here, so I always like to put my fingers underneath the skin and always know where it's at. You don't want to cut your fingers, so that would kind of help you not cut the hide. So,
gotcha, okay.
Even though I haven't cut the hide and my fingers.
Hey, if you ever talk to a taxidermist that says they've never cut their fingers, you're talking to a liar.
Yes. We're going to keep rotating it here. And you can do this without a hoist. I've done them on the back of the trucks or whatever. It just, you got to keep flipping them back and forth, which is harder on you. This is the best way to do it. It does a really good job. And like I said, this is just kind of tedious here, but just got to take your time. And if you leave meat on the hide, it's no big deal. I can get it off later, so don't worry about that. Just concentrate on not tearing the hide. And this area right here is where you really need to be careful, because this is the most critical area. And like I said, this is where his armpits are, and this is going to be part of the mount. So you really need to take your time and just kind of feel the fur and the skin. And
this right here is the part of the mount that a person's going to notice first, other than the antlers.
you don't want to see a big cut and where some taxidermists had to sew it up and you can see the hairlines messed up. We're just going to take the rest of it down to the neck as far as we can get it. And,
okay.
And what we're going to do, I'm going to cut where I'm going to be cutting with a saw and get the meat out of the way, and it'll just be the spinal cord in there.
All right.
And we'll get the saw out. There we go.
We're at the point right here to where if you were gonna have a taxidermist within the state you harvested the animal, do your work, this is where you would stop. Now, if you were gonna travel from out of state into the state of Kentucky, we still have the brain matter and probably some spinal column here that would need to be removed. So we're gonna move this to the table and pick it up at that point in time to go ahead and finish this process out. I see you have a tape measure here. The couple measurements we're gonna get are from the very tip of the nose.
Tip of the nose to the corner of the eye.
So you want to take these measurements and then jot these down and just provide these to your taxidermist so they can make the most realistic possible mount. What's the next step?
I'm gonna go ahead and start skinning it. I like to use the V cut from burr to burr. So I'm gonna be doing a V here. Put the screwdriver underneath there and start tearing it off there. And then coming back out with a little short incision here. And I'm just gonna do a little pre-cutting here. I'm gonna be cutting this ear off here at the connection point. So then I'm gonna be getting the screwdriver out again and using it back here a little bit, get the rest off the burr.
A little bit of twisting, a little bit of cutting, a little bit of prying, all that's involved.
Yes. We'll do the other side here. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over and we're gonna skin this mouth out. Every taxidermist does a little different, but I'm gonna attack this from both ends here. Again, you don't want to be cutting holes in the face. That's where it's the hardest to hide in the face. Take this nose off here. It's got some cartilage in here I'm gonna be cutting. You know, a lot of customers do their own Euro mounts, and you still need to do this process.
Be good if you were in an anatomy class for wildlife too, because man, you kind of
Yes.
get a good idea of what all this looks like.
All right, I'm gonna turn it over again and try to get this cape off the back of the meat here.
Okay.
Just kind of going back and forth on the outside.
Just rotating around and make your way around the face and just pulling all the hide forward, huh?
Yeah. I'll take my finger and put it inside the eye around the skin so I won't cut that eyelid. And then just stay really close to the skeleton here.
Eyelashes and everything are staying on the hide that you're going to be using. You
Yes.
want all that on there
Yes.
because that's what really makes it look good.
Yes, occasionally you'll lose hair follicles and bristles and stuff, but the more you keep, the more you realize that it does add to the mount. Okay, just kind of keep going back and forth. Finish this other burr here.
So really the tools you're going to need, obviously gloves are nice, but you're going to need a couple of really sharp knives, scalpels if you got them,
Yes.
a tape measure, a screwdriver or something to be able to pry that hide away from underneath the bottom of the antler.
Right.
The amount of work that you have to come through to make this thing look identical to what it did in the field and the precision that you have to go through is pretty amazing.
Right, it's a lot of work. I mean, people complain about prices a lot of time, but there's a lot that goes into it, a lot, you know, behind the scenes. So you got to pay for quality. Just the amount of time that each taxidermist spends on it. That's what you're paying for, the time you're spending on your deer.
So if you were out of state and you were going to bring this deer back in, this portion here is completely legal to bring in.
Right.
Let's say you're going to be traveling several hours. How would you handle this to make sure that it's best preserved?
I'm going to take these ears and roll them up into the hide. It helps protect them because the tip of the ears and the nose would be the first thing that would get freezer burned. I would put this in a plastic bag or two, and if the hunter had time to put it in the freezer overnight, and it'd be nice and cold for the trip. You do not want it at the bottom of the cooler with ice on top of it. You want it on top of the cooler and really bag it good so it doesn't get any moisture at all.
Taking the prize portion off, the antlers, you want to make sure you cut and leave enough to where you've got solid bone in between all that, right?
Right. And I'm just going to cut an inch or so in front of the pedicles here and same in the back, just so it'll fit into some of these forms I have. When you're doing this, you don't want to cut his antlers at all, so you got to really be careful.
Yeah, those bone saws are made to cut bone. They do great on bone. They don't do real well on fur or meat, do they?
No. All right, now we're going to flip it around, do the front. And it's pretty hard on that top there.
This old boy's been fighting. I'm sure it's a good thing it is hard.
Yes. And you was talking about the brain matter, and there's plenty of it right there that you wouldn't want to go across state lines with, so that needs to go. I'll clean up the excess meat, and we'll get this membrane off here.
There you go.
I'll put a little borax on it to dry it up. I'll just kind of dip these antlers down in it. Just spread it and rub it all over the inside. And that will dry up that meat, keep the bugs off of it, and you're good to travel.
Well, Bobby, I tell you, I appreciate the education on this, and transportation of deer parts are becoming more and more restricted. It's becoming more and more important as a hunter, if you think you may want to preserve your trophy with a taxidermist, to know how to do this.
Right.